and their 10 children. Before they even got married, he came up here from the Shenandoah Valley area as a surveyor. He came here to claim land, and he fell in love with this property. So he went back to the Shenandoah, convinced Eleanor to marry him, and moved to the middle of nowhere. So you can imagine how that conversation went. She's like, Thomas, what are you talking about? Where are we moving? But she did move up here with him, and her family, his family, and 39 freed slaves. So about 69 people in all moved up here. It took them 35 days. They went over longboats. They had to travel over log roads. It was quite the journey, but they managed. And they settled down in Masseyville, which was now called Chillicothe. So they were in Masseyville for several years while they were preparing to move up on the hill. And when they did, they built a 2-story log cabin out where the little grass oval is right out there. That grass oval, the 2-story log cabin, is called Bellevue. They lived there for about 3 or 4 years while the house was being built. And this is called Berea sandstone. It was quarried here on the property, and all the wood was quarried here, or gathered here as well. So the man who designed the house, his name was Henry Latrobe. So Latrobe designed it in 2 different sections. Especially upstairs, you'll notice there's a guest wing versus a family wing. And the kitchen is also attached, which was rather unheard of. So it's a very beautiful house, and we do have a few rules for the house. Please no eating or drinking. Feel free to take pictures and turn your flash off. And just don't touch anything, because most of the things are of the time period or original to the family. So that's it. So we're ready to head on in. We're going to walk in through the widest door in the house. It's called the Coffin Door, which might sound morbid, but it's not. They didn't have funeral homes like we do now, so they lay out their loved ones in their front hall. And you have to have a big enough door to get the coffin through. So come on in, and you'll enter to the front hall here. The thing that might grab your attention right off the bat is the floor. This is called a floor cloth. It's like the forerunner to linoleum. It's actually a very large piece of canvas that was hand painted and then shellacked. So this is so much easier to clean than the carpets. So we know they had 2 of these. This was originally wall to wall, but we cut this down a couple of years ago because people started to trip over the edges. Above one of our fireplaces is Thomas. That was when he was governor from 1814 to 1818. This is a gubernatorial picture. Now, he inherited money from his father. His wife also inherited money as well. So they did have wealth, but he was also a businessman. So he had grist mills, sawmills, import and export businesses, pork packing plant, distilleries, etc. So he did have money coming in. So he was considered a wealthy man. But he wasn't going to waste his money on frivolous things. So these doors are all original in the house. They've been redone in 2003. And they're made out of pine originally, but they're painted to look like mahogany. So if you come a little closer, you can see that it has the paintbrush strokes. So he wasn't going to waste his money on importing mahogany doors to the Northwest Territory. And also down here is another clever trick. This is black walnut, and it's painted with a turkey feather to make it look like marble. So it gives that effect of grandeur without breaking the bank, basically. He did spend $30 on this tall box, though. A man named George McCormick, who was a tenant carpenter, he made a lot of the furniture in the house. We'll go through and I'll point those out to you. But he charged $30 for that tall clock. I would have paid it. It's beautiful. So, and you'll notice when we go through the house that rooms that were public were usually painted or wallpapered, especially downstairs. So this is wallpaper. It's actually in squares instead of those large strips. And this would have been hand stenciled. When we go through the house, you'll notice we have a lot of bright colors that are a little obnoxious, but that was another sign of wealth. So trying to find these colors, you can't just go down to Sherwin-Williams. It would take a lot of effort to even make the paint for it. So walking through the house, oh, okay, they had status, they had wealth. Right. So Thomas and Eleanor had 10 children over a 22-year time period. So George McCormick made this little toddler crib, and you could have fit 2 or so toddlers in there. Now, I have a 2-year-old nephew. There's no way he's going to stay in that bed. So they had a little servant, female servant here to make sure that the children were well behaved in the nursery. I don't recommend looking at the wallpaper for too long, because it does tend to move on you if you stare at it for too long. But it's called laurel and lattice, and it was a common design at the time period. To get this Pepto-Bismol color, you would crush the beetle called a crushing the beetle. It gives up a red dye, mix the red dye with the white paint, and you have the pink color. So you're importing those beetles. Must have been very expensive than to have to extract the paint from them. No, thank you. After the children had grown, they would go up to their own rooms upstairs, and this was converted into a devotions room. He was Methodist, she was Presbyterian, or vice versa, so they would have family devotions in this room with their servants, their guests, and the family. But that's when we think it was wallpapered to make it a public space. So all the floors, now these are really scuffed up, but all the floors in the house are original except the wing rooms, so the office and the kitchen. As you look through the house, you'll notice that these floors don't squeak, but the newer floors do. There was a time when the house was abandoned and local farmers squatted on the property, and they kind of abused the house. They used the wing rooms to house livestock and straw and hay, etc. So when we got the house, we're like, ooh, we got to get the floors. So these are the original. So this is the only bedroom downstairs. All the other rooms are upstairs. One of the reasons I think Eleanor wanted one of the tropes designed this way so Eleanor could have easy access to her garden. Here we have a window door. All you do is lift up the window, unlatch the bottom, and you can walk right outside. She loved her garden very much. She had about 40 varieties of flowers, and that was her domain. You'll notice this bed is much shorter than we think of beds today. It's because they were a little bit smaller. She was 5 foot, but he was about 6 or so. So the heights did vary, but they did not sleep flat like we do now. They would prop themselves up with pillows to protect themselves from pneumonia. They thought it was better for their breathing and their digestion. In the winter, they would use heavy bed curtains like we have on right now. And in summer, lighter bed curtains, because if your window door's open, all the bugs are going to come right inside your room. So beyond the flower garden was the outhouse. But if it was poor weather like we've had today, or if it was nighttime, you'd have to use something along the lines of a chamber pot. Probably something a little bit nicer, because Eleanor was always pregnant, so she'd probably have something more like a chamber chair. Here in the corner, we have the master bathroom. This is all you need, because you're going to wash your face and your hands and your feet. So that's all it really shows. About once a week, you're going to take a bath. And once a month, you're going to wash your hair. But they wanted those ringlet curls because they thought they were very fashionable. So to get that look, you're going to comb honey water in your hair and then use a clay curler like this one. Wrap that sticky hair around the curler, tie it in place, let it dry, and then when you take it out, you have those curls. So if you've ever heard the term, I have a bee in my bonnet, it comes from having that sticky, sugary honey in your hair. All the bees just go right for it. They would wear caps like the one you see on the small dresser here, all the time. Probably because their hair was very disgusting looking. In the corner behind you, we have what's called a chest-on chest. And you could rotate your clothes out depending on the season. So your winter clothes could go up top right now, and then your summer clothes would be on the bottom, and vice versa. On the smaller dresser, we have a shaving mirror. That is an original piece. That belonged to Edward Tiffin. Now, Edward Tiffin was the brother-in-law of Thomas Worthington. He was Ohio's first governor and Chillicothe's first doctor. So when they came from Shenandoah, they all came together, and they shared the political. The next room is her parlor. We can head on in if you want to. This is a wallpapered room, so you would not have access to the parlor from the bedroom. You'd have to go around through the drawing room. So let's head on into the parlor.
Am I okay here?
Oh yeah, you're fine with that. This is her office as well as her parlor. Now, she was very business-minded. She was very highly educated. She came from Virginia, so she was upper crust, definitely. Her husband was off and gone with his businesses and also being a politician. So she was left here at Adena, raising her 10 children and making sure the household staff was in order. They weren't losing businesses down in Chillicothe. So on the small desk there is the only likeness we have of Eleanor. She was about 55 when that was done. And it was said that she lost a tooth every child, so you can kind of tell that her cheeks are rather sunken in, unfortunately. She had 5 daughters and 5 sons. Her 5 sons were educated here in that log cabin called Bellevue. That was moved somewhere else on the property. And they were tutored there until they were 13. At that point, they went off to Ohio University and then off to West Point. Now, her daughters, they were sent away much earlier. They were about 7 or 8 when they went to boarding school. So up here on the mantelpiece, you need to meet some of the daughters. These are the 2 eldest children. To the left is Mary, to the right is Sarah. And those were done in boarding school. They cut their hair very short because of hygienic reasons. They didn't have showers either, and lice was a problem. Yes, you were of a wealthy family, but there are 50 little girls in one house, and lice just happens. So they would cut their hair very short. In between the 2 girls is a portable pin cushion. So let's just pretend that it's actually standing upright this way. So you can put your pins in here, and your needle and thread there, and that can attach to the end of your table or to the arm of your chair. Out of the 15 fireplaces, only 3 of them have the real marble, because marble was $7 a pound, came from Pittsburgh, very expensive. So you would just use it in the rooms that were very fancy. So this room, the next room, and the dining room have the real marble. On the floor, we have, underneath the rug, we have this straw matting, and you'll see this throughout the house. This was bought from the Orient. It was very expensive for the Worthingtons to purchase. But this helps keep the dirt down. Otherwise, you have the wood, and you're going to use your skirts. It's going to swish up all the dirt. It's going to go between the cracks. You don't want that. So put down the brushes on the floor. It's so much easier to clean. In the winter, these rugs would have gone out, but in the summer, you would have rolled the rugs up. Any questions for the parlor office? All right, let's head into the drawing room here.
This is one of my favorites. I like it because I think Tecumseh wasn't in here.
Yeah, he was, exactly. Man. And that's our door that squeaks.
Ooh, that's creepy.
Yeah. People are like, it's the ghost. And I'm like, what? We don't know if we have one. Actually, there's a small block that it can... Oh, it's so loud. And when we have school groups, it'll close and all the kids freak out. And I'm like, oh.
There's rumors that it's haunted, but 2 years ago, the other lady that was a tour guide said that there's no truth to it.
I've never had any experiences here. I've been here by myself before, and it's a very peaceful house. I've always felt peace here, so. Anyway, besides the squeaky door. So yes, you're right, Tecumseh did stay here. He and Round Head, Blue Jacket, and Panther, they would visit Worthington back when he was senator, before he was the governor. So they would come to Adena often, and they were good friends with the family. Such good friends that Tecumseh gave Worthington a peace pipe tomahawk, and he said, I'll never raise this against you or your family. So he just made a promise to be peaceful between the 2 families. Now, the Shawnee never stayed in the house. They never slept here. They always slept outside. And you can access the south lawn through the second window door behind you, and that's where they would have had their camp. Now, recently, one of our trees did collapse there. Unfortunately, those are very old, very beautiful, but that's where they would have had their camp, right there on the south lawn. A few other important guests were Henry Clay. Now, Henry Clay was a good friend of Thomas up until the War of 1812, because Henry was for the war, Thomas was not. So they butted heads, but their wives grew up together, so they still had to play nice, I guess. James Monroe stayed here as well. He only stayed here for 1 night, but he got a room named after him, and we'll see that upstairs. So there are a few original pieces in this room. Here we have the original couch, and here we have the table, and these 2 are the reproductions. The 2 girls you met on the mantelpiece were very well known for playing the pianoforte. This is from England. It dates back to the 1790s or so. And here in the corner we have a rounder or a turntable. On the other side of the wall is the other half of the rounder. You can put food on the rounder, just turn it and you can make it in this room. So you only need 1 servant to serve. Cuts down on traffic back and forth from the kitchen. Like you to notice for a moment how shallow our fireplaces are. They did that on purpose. They wanted the heat and the light in the room, but if you have a shallow fireplace, it's going to smoke pretty badly. They would paint their ceilings this blue slate color to keep the obvious signs of the smoke kind of hidden. And also, if you have a blue ceiling like this, bugs like the wasp will not put his mud nest up there, which is pretty nice because no trees. All of the fireplaces, all of them but two I believe, are actually built into the bearing walls here. So you have 22 inches between this wall and this wall of sandstone. So you build your fireplace into the bearing walls that keeps the warmth in the house. So the trove is pretty clever. Do you know about the wallpaper? Actually, do you want to take the wallpaper home with you? Take it. I can't handle it anymore. This was pretty close to what they would have had. During the first restoration, they stripped back all the layers of the wallpaper that they'd ever put up there, and they got down to the original plaster. Now, this design was printed on the plaster from the original ink of the first paper. And I don't know how long the paper would have been up there. Eleanor would come in the house and be like, "No, Thomas, no. Take that down." But we were able to find the ink and analyze it and then do it for us. So you have your wallpaper, even the trim is a different design, and then you have the Brussels carpet here. So Thomas thought he was being clever, and he's like, "I'm going to buy all this carpet, and I'm going to go back to Chillicothe and start a new business venture." Well, he got there, and no one liked it. No one could afford it, and no one wanted the same carpet that their neighbor had. So he was left with all this carpet. The 1821 insurance survey tells us that we need to put carpet in this room, the next room, and one room upstairs. So poor guy. This and the pink color follows us throughout the house. Just we can head on in.
I love the paintings in this room.
Aren't they beautiful? They're so well done. So this is the state dining room. Now the Worthington children, they did not partake of meals in this room until they had the proper table manners. They had their own room next door. This was just for guests. So this table could have extended out to fit about 25 people or so. It's not the original table, unfortunately, but to make your table bigger, just put in the leaves, and also you can add table ends. And those table ends, original, are right behind you. George McCormick made those primarily out of curly maple. And you can just put them on the end of your table, drop your cloth over it, and there you go. Now the servants could have served from the second rounder here and also from these sideboards. So this one is a reproduction, but George McCormick made this one the original. Above the reproduction is Mary, the daughter. This is when she grew up. Those are the ringlet curls that we were talking about. Above this one is Thomas. This is his wedding portrait. And now we don't know if Eleanor had a wedding portrait. We think she did, because they would come in pairs. So if you ever watch Antique Roadshow and you see it, give me a call. That'd be great. So he's only 23 when this was done. This is the late 1790s. So they would still grease and powder their hair. So you guys would have greasy, powdery hair, and we would have sticky, bug-infested hair. Aren't we lovely? Quite. In the corner here is Albert. Now Albert is his fourth child and second son. Albert was put in charge of the distillery down in New Orleans. He ended up having a drinking problem. He got in an illegal duel, and he had to run back to Adena before he got in too much trouble. So he was kind of a scoundrel. Behind you is James. Now he is the eldest son. He is the son and heir. And after Thomas passed away, it was about 1827 when he passed away, that left Eleanor a widow for 21 years. During that time, they had some financial issue. She was still raising children, raising grandchildren, so James really helped keep her financially stable as best he could. After she passed away, it's 1848, he moves up here with Julia, his wife. Now, he and Julia live here together for about 8 years, till she herself passes away, leaving 5 or 6 children. So James forgoes the mourning period and he remarries very quickly. There's a small portrait on the table end of a young woman named Martha Piazzi. He and his family lived here until 1946, and the rest of the things that they did to this house, beautiful. They modernized everything. They put a porch on the south lawn, gorgeous. After they passed away, his daughter gave it to the state of Ohio. So we're left with this beautiful modernized mansion, and it's the 40s. I'm like, oh, now what do? We have to take everything out, save for the electricity, heating and cooling. And they did the first restoration from 40 to 53. And the second was 2000 to 2003 for the bicentennial. So what you see here is as pretty close as we can get it to what the Worthingtons would have had. And then the original pieces were donated to us by the family, and then these were donated as well. So all these are original prints. The next room is the family dining room, and this is where the children would have had their meals. There's also a staging area to serve in this room. So come on in, you can see it in more detail. So there's the rounder in more detail, the turntable there. And you'll notice on the floor we have the second floor cloth. This is pretty practical considering you have over the years 10 children. It's kind of messy. So floor cloth is easier to clean. Above the fireplace we have family maxims. So those are 30 family rules that the Worthington children had to learn on having their meals. So no rest for the wicked. The table's only set for 4 because only about 4 of them would have grown up together. They knew about their other siblings, but only about 4 grew up in the same house together. And he is a student. He's learning how to do the tours, and he'll be doing this room for us. Gives me some time to read.
Okay. This is Thomas Worthington's kitchen. This is where this is where they would cook their 3 meals of the day. And over here is where they would have done it. This is a very big fireplace. This is the original crane. You will pull this out and you can put your, makes it handy to be able to put your food and stuff into it. And over here is another, it's a oven, it's a bread oven. You can fit 16 loaves of bread into it. The coolest thing about checking to see if it's ready is you stick your arm inside of it. And if you can count to 10 without getting your arm burnt, it's just right. And over here is a very precious item because it costs a lot. It's called a sugar. You know what it is. And you would raise this, it's called a sugar nipper. You would raise this up and you pinch a piece of sugar off and give it to a guest. And since it's so expensive, Eleanor would have put it in her spice cabinet right in there. And it's one of the oldest pieces in the house. And Eleanor would have been the only person to carry a key. And just to keep everyone out, when the cooking needed any spices, she'd come in, unlock it, and divvy it out for him. And then I know there's a lot of cool gadgets in here. If anything catches your eye, just ask.
What's the thing with the crank on right there?
This is a coffee grinder.
That's what I was thinking. It was a grinder of some sort.
It's a coffee grinder. Any other questions?
What about the black box up there?
That is a foot warmer. You can put hot coals in it. It'd be like you put it in your carriage, but you can put your feet on it and just help warm your feet.
How long would it take to cook a meal? I think I remember it took quite a long time to cook a meal, wouldn't it? In that fireplace.
What you're cooking for. Prince Williams was the cook, and he never was really sure because he cooked for the Worthington family. So you also have the guests who come and stay for weeks, and then you just have an overnight guest. So to prepare this all, they'd have to start baking about 4 in the morning or so, and then they would go all the way to late at night because they had their breakfast around 8. They didn't have a traditional lunch like we do, but they started their supper around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So you can imagine he spent those mid-hours preparing for it.
Mm-hmm.
So 5 hours for a meal, perhaps, depending on how big the meal was going to be.
Wowzers.
But he wasn't alone. He had his family who helped him. Servants' quarters are above the kitchen and above the office. So when Prince Williams came here with the family, he said, "I'll work for you, but can my family come too?" And Tom said, "Of course you can." So Prince Williams and his entire family worked the kitchen. So you can imagine it's a crowded place. We're just gonna walk right on upstairs. This is the original banister. It's just feel free to use it, but please be gentle with it. Alright, this is the guest wing of the house. This is when the house becomes separated. The Worthington children have their own wing, and we'll see that next door, but this is just for the guests for to stay. There are a number of us, so it's easier to just let you walk around at your own leisure. So I'm going to give you a small description of each room. If you have any questions, get back to me. So this here is known as the Monroe bedroom. President Monroe stayed here one night. This is the best guest room. So that's the one he got. In between the wingback chairs in that room, you'll notice a small fire screen. That would have been done by a young girl in boarding school. You can kind of make out the outline of a young girl. This one is the Clay bedroom where the Clay family would have stayed. So Henry, Lucretia, and over the years they had 11 children. So you can imagine how very crowded that got. In the corner they have a small hip tub you can see. And the room behind you is that's Sarah, the second eldest daughter, always requested when she visited. And there's a portrait of her above the fireplace. She converted to Catholicism and started 2 orders, and those nuns still come here today and we get to worship them. So in Cincinnati, she's very that we did not enter. That would have led up to the original. So Thomas would take his guests up there. There was a catwalk there one time, and he would show them Mount Ives and Mount Logan and the Great Seal, and to take them up there and like, look how beautiful it is. So whether they wanted to or not, take them up there. But we don't have a catwalk, so we can't force you on the roof today. Come back in a couple of years, that may change. I don't know. The next room is the trunk room, and all through here, so this is where the traveling servants would have stayed. Remember, the Worthington servants had their own rooms. So if the Clays were to come, their footmen or ladies' maid, etc., they could have stayed in this room. And when they travel, they stay for weeks at a time, so they take everything with the kitchen sink with them. They have to have their own room just for all their luggage. These stairs lead up to the heating and cooling system that the Worthingtons totally had. It's the best kept secret of 1807, I tell ya. We have to have that to keep our antiques happy and healthy. So this is it. This is the end of the guest wing. There are 22 inches of sandstone in between us, so the family could do what they pleased, guests could do what they pleased, and never actually moved. They didn't want to. When the Smiths bought this, they thought it was mighty inconvenient to go down the stairs, across the entry hall, into the nursery, and up the back stairs. So they could have toured here. The fire marshal says we have to keep it open, so we have easy access into the family wing. And in this wing, another student named Jake is going to do the boys' room for us.
This is the boys' room. This is where any Worthington boys would have stayed. They would have slept in bed like this. This is called a 10 bed. You drape a cloth over the top to keep the bugs out, because remember, we don't have any screens. In the winter, you use a much heavier material like this to keep heat in. In the summer, you use a much lighter material to keep cool. Under the bed, we have a trundle. It's where guests would have slept if they stayed over. Before you sleep in at night, you use a special tool to tighten up the ropes so they're not slack when you go to lay on them. That's where the saying sleep tight comes from. Over on the mantle, we have a picture of Thomas Jr. He was a soldier in the Civil War. He fought at the Battle of Shiloh. It was a great loss for everybody because of all the casualties and losses. So when the battle ended, he thought it'd be a good idea to tell the general how the battle should have been fought, which wasn't a very good idea. So he was dishonorably discharged, and afterwards he wrote a book about it called The Plunder of the Rebellion. Has anybody ever heard of it? Well, supposedly it tells how it actually went down at Shiloh and how the battle actually happened. To the right, we have a picture of Francis. He's the youngest son of the family. He died at the age of 29, which was very young. We're not sure from what, but we know at the time he was treating patients in Cincinnati of the typhoid epidemic. In the corner we have a chair that's very small. It belonged to James. James was the eldest of the family. There is a chair located in the office just like it that belonged to Thomas Worthington. So when James was very young, he has one just like his. Here we have a bathroom. This is all you need to wash your hands, feet, and face. The toothbrush is a little bit modern. They would have used twigs, sticks, and bark. The comb is very fine and thin because at the time lice was a very big problem. So that was used to get any lice out of your hair. The drums and what you see here in the dresser is just games similar to those played back in their day. Any questions?
Thanks, Jake. Alright, we're going to walk through what's called a Jack and Jill, so kind of a shared closet space. And right to the girls. This is one of my favorite ones. To the right, you have a beautiful view of the south lawn and also the garden. Much like the boys' room, only 2 or 3 girls would have shared this room at a time. They could have shared this bed and then have a trundle underneath. You'll notice their toys here are lots of fun for little girls, but they were also kind of sneaky ways of teaching them life skills. So you have your etiquettes with your tea set, and you have your little gallery there teaching you how to be a mother eventually. And here on the dresser we have alphabet cards. Now these are really fun. I really like these when I was growing up. So you have, P is for pineapple. And you have a little hodgepodge doll who goes along with it. Now Hodge and I don't really get along, but I'm going to try really hard. So a P, how does he do that? Is that a P? Right? So you can kind of change these around and make different letters. And it's a fun way to teach the kids their alphabet. On the mantle to the left, very left there, is Ellen, pardon me. Ellen was named after her mother. She married a local man downtown Chillicothe named Arthur Watts. Now, she and Arthur lived happily together in this beautiful house called Eolia on the Scioto River until she converted to Catholicism like her sister Sarah. Once that happened, Arthur left her. And she was older, she had children to take care of her at this time. But they never got back together after that. So she and Arthur. To the right is Elizabeth. Now, Elizabeth married a man named Charles Pomeroy. And Charles was a bit of a scoundrel too. He wasn't good with money. He was very poor. They were all very poor. And she wrote her mother one winter and asked for $50 to just get through the winter. Because over the case of their marriage of 17 years, she had 11 children. And that was very, very tough on her. After the last baby had been born, she herself passed away and the child passed away soon afterwards. So the remaining children were brought back to Adena, and they were raised by grandmother Ellen. So Eleanor helped raise her grandchildren, and so did this lady here. This is Margaret, one of the sisters. She was 27 and unmarried. She was kind of choosy on who she wanted to marry because she saw what happened to her sisters. So unmarried, still 27, and helped raise her nephews and nieces. Once she was 27, people are kind of laughing at her. She didn't like that very much. So she married a man in Cincinnati named Edward Mansfield. I don't know if she just went down there and met him and she's like, you! I'm not really sure how that happened, but they lived very happily. They had 5 sons together. She lived into her 60s, so she had a rather happy life. In her journal, she writes about keeping drawers of sweet nothings, because by this time, several of her siblings had passed away. So she would keep locks of their hair, letters, ribbons, etc. Now, I don't know if that hair is real or not. I don't really want to know. But that was a keepsake. And again, this is just one of my favorite rooms because it's so light and the view is very beautiful. Now, we also think Margaret may have suffered from migraines. They didn't have the same terms that we have now, but she always said she was feeling ill and her head was aching. So it's interesting to find out that they have the same problems that we do now. We didn't know what it was called. We also think she may have had bipolar disorder, because she wrote a letter to her sister Sarah in Cincinnati, and she got so upset because the next day she didn't have any post from Sarah. Like, well, yes, it takes a good 2 weeks to get to Cincinnati. What are you thinking? So we're not really sure. She was definitely a character. Now, if you had a very bad attitude, like Margaret sometimes had, Mom would put you in a closet. And the closet's right around the corner. So let's head over here and check out the bad.
The torture machine's in here.
This is called the crying room. And it was not just used for crying. It's a nice, storage space as well. But Sarah writes that when she was bad, having a temper tantrum, Mom would put her in the crying room to let her cry it out. So Mom had all the keys of the house. She'd put you in here. She'd lock you in here. There's no doorknob. Mom has the keys, and you're in there until you're done having a fit. So I would recommend doing that now. But in the early 1800s, it was perfectly acceptable. That's a little interesting little tidbit. If you have 10 kids and you're here by yourself, you can do something, right? Something has to happen. Right, you can take a look behind you if you're interested in looking at the garden at all. The garden is mapped out into 3 tiers. So the first tier is the flower garden, which was Ellen's domain, and the second tier is the vegetable garden, which was the German indentured servant's domain. And the last tier is the orchard and also the vineyards. And Eleanor was known to make wine. I bet she needed it with all those kids. So we have master gardeners who come here on Wednesdays, and they help take care of the garden for us, which is very nice. So we're gonna head downstairs to the last room on the tour, and ask you to be careful on these stairs.
Oh, this is an awesome room.
And here we have Jake again to do this room for us.
This is the office. This is where Thomas Ferguson would have worked. He was sat in this chair. This is the bigger version of the chair that James wanted so badly. He would have worked here. This is his laptop, so to say. It folds up and has compartments so where he could fit his documents, and it could be taken wherever he pleases. And it was raining outside. He'd fold up his documents and put it in this canister, which is weatherproof. So. On the mantle, we have a sword. It's 3-sided. It was given to Thomas when he was about 14. It belonged to his dad. His dad passed away when he was about 5 or 6. His mom passed away about a year later. And where he was fostered by his 2 brothers and his 1 sister. So he was 14, which then was given his dog sword. It was never used for, I don't think it ever seen battle, and it wasn't used for much violence. It was more just a shaman piece. Here in the shelf, we have a replica of the pie that's complicated to Thomas to resemble peace between the 2 families. So we have the real one in the museum. This is just a replica. If you guys would like to hold this, you may. Here we have the library. All the books you see here are relative to the time period. Really, the bottom 2 shelves are original to the family. The bottom shelf is the family Bibles, and the second to the bottom shelf is the family encyclopedias. Here we have surveying equipment. He has a surveying chain right here, 66 feet and 100 links. They're used to map out land, to make maps. And without the hard work of the surveyors back then, the maps they see here and here would have never changed. That map is 1810. You can see there's a lot of geographical errors. And the map you see over here is 1822. So that's 12 years in, there's a lot of mistakes corrected. Above the door, we have 2 Kentucky long rifles. They're manufactured in Pennsylvania. They did belong to Thomas, but he said himself he was not a good shot. So whenever he would hunting, he'd take his servant Moses with him. And while Moses hunted, he would sit back on a horse and he'd read a book. There is a bed in here because often Thomas would sleep long nights. Work long nights. And instead of walking through the nursery and waking up the children, he would just sleep in here. Or if there was too many guests and not enough beds, he would let a guest sleep in that bed.
He was getting away from his wife.
Yeah. I'm sure she was happy too, to take care of kids like that. Any questions?
Well, since Jane. I encourage you to, I know the weather's kind of soggy, but if you haven't had a chance to look through the garden, go down to the tenant house, the outbuildings, and the barn. We have little animals downstairs too. So I can let you out the service exit here.